Okay, so Marcy, you were just talking about
Mhm.
how if a mom or a friend or anyone detects an eating disorder or the early signs of one, you get help right away. And there's like a team of doctors and specialists that can take care of the situation. And we don't like treat anxiety and eating disorder separately. Like it's all connected together. Okay,
Yeah.
so can you just describe like what a treatment plan would look like and what the difference between an inpatient place, inpatient clinic versus an outpatient clinic would be, and like what they would need depending on the
Okay.
situation.
Sure. So you're right. There are two basic types. There are inpatient and outpatient, but within that, there are a couple, several different situations because there's intensive outpatient and partial hospitalization and complete inpatient and outpatient, right? So outpatient is always that first line of defense where you might start to see a therapist once or twice a week, seeing how severe it is, how disturbed the child is with it, what's happening, if that's enough, if they're connecting, if they're able to make that work. That would be the first line of defense. Intensive outpatient means more sessions because more significant intervention is needed than a single session or two a week can give them, right? So they're going to be having more intensive outpatient. Maybe they're 5 days a week with their therapist, something like that. But if they get worse or they're medically unstable, then you're in a different situation, right? Because then they really need to be watched and they need to be refed sometimes, or they need to be given fluids and watch that they don't purge or they don't do some of these behaviors that are so dangerous for them. So then they might go inpatient, which would be 24 hours a day. They would be in the hospital, with a team of people who are watching them, watching what they eat, when they go to the bathroom, that they don't go in the bathroom like by themselves because they might be doing things they're not supposed to be doing in the bathroom, that they don't hide food, they have to be weighed. It's a much more intense type of treatment. And then partial hospitalization is somebody who it's more than intense outpatient because they need maybe 5 or 6 hours a day where they're really in with the group and they're seeing their therapist and they're having a meal or two a day with everybody. And so they're giving them more, but they don't stay in the hospital. So there's kind of all different kinds of levels. And so, like, as we said, you need that team, you need the doctor, you need the mental health professional, you need dietitian, nutritionist, you need all kinds of people on your team to help you, the nurses, everyone has to be there to help. And based on the issue, because eating disorders are highly personalized, I can't tell you that one modality of treatment will work. Some people use dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. Some people use FBT, which is family-based treatment. Some people use that EMDR for like a trauma-based situation, individual therapy. They do family therapy, group therapy, nutritional rehabilitation, medical services and interventions. It has to be highly personalized to the issue, to the person. Are they ready for treatment yet? Are they actively participating in their getting better, or are they still pushing back and not ready to let go of the eating disorder yet? It's still a really important coping mechanism for them. So it really depends where they are in a lot of ways, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Mm-hmm. And how long? I mean, I know every situation is different, but how long can treatment take? Like, what's the most it can take and what's the least?
I mean, I've heard stories of people where they were sick for 15, 20 years, very sick, in and out of hospitals, very, very ill, almost end of life situations. But I've heard of stories that are much shorter, you know what I mean? And those people still recovered. So I guess I would say it really depends how long a person's been sick before they got treatment. How entrenched are they with their eating disorder? How sick are they with it? How committed are they to getting better? Are they ready? Have they hit that rock bottom point where they're like, I see this doesn't serve me. My life is too hard like this. I want to make a change. Do they have the right support? Right? Are they getting help from home? Do they have the right treatment team? These are also factors. And then, what are their comorbidities? What other psychoses or illnesses are going along with the eating disorder? The less
Right.
those are, obviously, the shorter that it can take. So like I said, like you said, each case is so individual. You might start to see improvement in a couple months, but relapse rates are high. It might be
Mm.
years. It really depends on the child and the situation. That's what I would say. But I would like to also say that there's so many people who got better as soon as the child is really ready, the person is ready to get better, there's so many things out there to support them. It's more about getting them to that place where they see that the eating disorder no longer serves them and that they can live their life beautifully, wonderfully, happily without it. And then that turnaround is usually much faster.
Mm-hmm. That was actually my next question. Like, even if someone is fully treated, they come out of the rehab, they come out of the clinic, and they're fully healed, you know, what are the chances of relapse? Is it very high? And can they live without an eating disorder for the rest of their life? Or is there always a chance of them going back to that?
I would say there are many people who live without it. I would say most people have a relapse though, however, at some point. When they're seen to be completely cured, those first 18 months are the most delicate time. So the relapse is higher during those first 18 months after treatment. And you know, I think studies show pretty much between 35 and 60% of people will relapse at some point, not forever necessarily, but it just means that it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yep.
This has been something that served them because of their emotions and because of their issues. And so it's really hard to just completely let go of it. And also because of the fact that insurance has been a struggle, because they don't always recognize that even if you get someone back to their normal weight, or you get them in a place where they haven't binged and purged in a week or two, that's where treatment starts, because people with eating disorders are nutritionally deficient. People who are purging, even if they're eating a ton of food, they're not absorbing the nutrients. They are, you know, they're not mentally sound because of the fact that they're malnourished. And so until you've actually refed them and they're keeping the food in for an extended period of time, they're not even ready to accept the therapy yet. They're mentally not cognitively like in a place where they can do that. So I think it's important to realize that the refeeding is kind of stage 1. And then after that, you know, then you really get down to the nitty gritty of how can we support this person. And there's something called an eating disorder recovery coach, which I think are really wonderful tools for people who are finished with their therapy, but they still need a little extra support beyond a therapist. And these people will go shopping with people who are recovering from an eating disorder. They'll sit with them throughout their meals. They'll help them cook or go shopping for their food. They'll go through their clothes with them again and try them on in their closet, because they need these type of supports that you don't think about, right? Okay, so they did the therapy and they said that they're okay, but now they're thrown out into the world and they're on their own. And the thoughts that they had are coming back because they're in new situations. So sometimes a recovery coach can be really helpful once they've gotten to a good place in their therapy. It's a very good support.
Yeah, there was something you said before. I just wanted to go back. You said how there's a dietitian, a nutritionist, mental health professional, doctor, all of these people who help a patient. I never really understood the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if going to a dietitian or a nutritionist as a teenager to get to a healthy weight or to a desired weight, does that ever, you know, contribute to, let's say, an eating disorder, going to one as a teenager?
That's a really, really
not to be controversial, not to be too controversial.
No, it is difficult because, well, I believe a dietitian is certified. They are, you know, accredited and certified and have to take state licensures and stuff like that. A nutritionist learns a lot about nutrition and is very well educated, but it's a different type of licensing. So I wouldn't say they necessarily go to both a dietitian and a nutritionist, but they probably need one or the other. But the reality is that so I don't know if you've heard a little bit about health at every size, intuitive eating. Yes, dietitians can contribute if they're very rigid in their thinking about, so you can have 3 carbs a day and 2 proteins. When they create a diet plan that's going to, for somebody who's at risk or who has some issues around their food already and body image, then these very strict rules and rigidity can absolutely contribute, because it contributes to really weight stigma and diet culture. If they teach them how to have a healthy relationship with food, that's different. And how to support their body and how to make healthy choices that might be nutritionally sound. I think in our communities, we sometimes create unhealthy relationships with food when we use food as a reward. So in school, sometimes, you know, we give a treat if you I don't know. For my boys, it was go to Minion 5 days a week on time. They got a Danish at the end of the week or whatever it is. It's they associate food. You are creating an unhealthy relationship with food and when it's reward based. When we make foods out, when we moralize food is good, food is bad. When you moralize it or you use it as a reward or punishment, you're actually messing up your child's relationship with food. They don't know what it's for. They don't know how to use it properly as a tool for their health. We have to be so careful how we treat food in our homes. Moderation is really key. Obviously, no one's saying, okay, let them eat sugar all day, every day. But the reality is that they have to kind of be in tune with their bodies and what their bodies need and when they need it. And in order to do that, obviously, you have to give them good, healthy choices in your home. When we make food out to be, so if I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of grandparents, if you lose 10 pounds, every pound you lose, I'll pay you this much money. Or if you lose 10 pounds, then you'll be allowed to go to camp. Or, girls come back from seminary in our home, we're a size 2. When you get back to that size 2, I'll buy you clothing. When you create this relationship with food, or you tell them they're not allowed to eat food that other people are eating because they need to go on a diet. And I'm sure it's coming from a loving place. They don't want them to struggle with what they struggled from. They're not doing it meanly or purposefully, but they don't realize that this creates this unhealthy relationship with their child with food. So I think sometimes standard dietitians might, go by the food pyramid or BMI, which is a whole nother conversation to have, because it's really not an accurate or good measurement for someone's weight or, what they should look like. But the point is that, yes, we kind of have to change the dialogue around food, weight, appearance. That has to change.
For sure. I also noticed even religious girls who go to an all girls school and they go to seminary after, a lot of the focus is on shidduchim and getting married and getting ready. I hear so many stories about girls when they enter high school around 10th, 11th grade, the focus of their being starts to be all about when you leave high school, you got to think about shidduchim and getting married. And unfortunately, from what I hear, many girls are being involved in a lot of dieting, over-exercising, getting to certain weights, and their moms are actually contributing to it because their moms are the ones who are telling them they have to eat certain foods to get to a quote unquote healthy weight or a weight that is quote unquote attractive. So what can we do about that? How can moms prepare their girls for marriage because they want their girls to get married, right?
Yeah.
But not make their girls have an eating disorder in a way.
It's a great question. It's a hard question. So I guess there's a few parts to the question. Number one is what we're trying to do with Atzmi is part of what we do in our 12th grade curriculum is talk about healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, kind of defining your priorities and things that are important to you, because we want the girls to understand what a healthy relationship looks like, what they're looking for in a relationship, how to have give and take in a relationship. So I think what we would try to do is give the girls tools going forward for themselves that they might not have. So that's number one. So when they can kind of determine what they're looking for and what's really important to them. And of course, we talk about appearance, ideal, and body image with them as well. But I think that this gives them a leg up. And these girls will be tomorrow's mothers. So how they talk to their daughters will be different about their bodies. When we give our girls a lot of mixed messages in schools, at home, we tell them that, it's our internal connection to Hashem, it's our neshama, it's our inner part of our body that is really important, right? That's what's important and people should see and what you should look for and love. But yet we still focus a ton on our appearance and our externals, and you should be this, but yet, okay, you should be a good cook, but you shouldn't eat the food. You should be a baker, but you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't eat that. You should still be thin, but you should still be good in all these ways. So we kind of model this superwoman ideal ourselves to our own children accidentally, right? We can have kids and then go bounce back. We should bounce back to our weight. We should bounce back to, everything in the house should be perfect and having company and doing our kids' homework and sending them to school and dressed perfectly and the house is clean. I don't think our kids sometimes notice that we struggle. And so I think modeling is a really important thing that they pick up on. We model behaviors that are unrealistic. So we might have these meltdowns or struggles that our daughters don't see. I think we have to be more honest with our kids about what life is like and the expectations of what they need to look for and know. You're right, it's a problem with the shidduch system that's what they're looking for. But if we instill in our daughters self-compassion, self-esteem, body image, positive body image, then they feel better about themselves. And so you're right, they might not get this shidduch or that shidduch, but it creates a whole different level of feeling about themselves when that might not work out. And when all the girls feel that way, then the system has to change, because the girls are feeling more positive about who they are. And I think one of the biggest risk factors in the studies that I conducted in our communities is this thing that I term it expectation of homogeneity, that our girls are expected to kind of be and do and aspire to the same things. But we're not meant to be the same. Hashem did not create us the same. He doesn't want us to be the same. Within the realm of being from, you don't have to do all the same things. So I think girls who kind of don't fit that mold feel very stressed. Why am I different? They don't realize they have so many beautiful capabilities, abilities, talents. We want them to see these things. So I think when they recognize themselves better, it helps.
I think the moms, right. I think the moms of those girls also stress out even more, where maybe the girl is happy-go-lucky and she doesn't necessarily feel like there is a problem, but the girl comes back from seminary, or she goes to Israel for a couple of months, she comes back, she put on some weight, she gained 10, 15 pounds. The mom starts to get nervous. She starts to get worried. So it's more of like the mom's projection. She's projecting her anxiety on the girl, whether the girl is 5 years old, 15, 20.
Yes.
I've spoken to many moms who get very worried about obesity, their child being obese, because when your child or your teenage daughter is obese, there's a disadvantage to that in terms of she feels left out with certain girl groups. She has a more difficult time with shidduchim. She has a more difficult time with various aspects in our community or culturally. Because as you said, diet culture promotes that thin is best, thin is better. So, I mean, what can we do as parents to teach our girls about self-compassion, body acceptance, all of these things, but also in a way, we also don't want our girls to be obese, right? Like,
of course,
is a problem as well.
Of course.
Do you understand my question?
I do. And there's a difference between obesity and being overweight, or what our society terms overweight. But like I said before, so the reality is 95% of diets fail. So when you make your child completely uptight about their bodies and about what they look like, it usually doesn't serve them positively. What happens is they'll go on you'll take them to Weight Watchers, or you'll put them on a diet that works for a little while, and then they'll either gain all that weight back and then some. If you teach them healthy habits, if we teach them about joyful movement, we move our bodies because it makes us feel good, because we have to move them every day. We nourish our bodies with things that are healthful for our bodies. We have to change the whole conversation around food and what it's for, because you can make your child starve themselves to get into a shidduch. They'll lose that weight, but most of the time, the vast majority of the time, that weight goes right back on after they get married, or after they have one child, or whatever it is. And they don't feel good about themselves. And we put on them this idea that if you're thin, you will be happy. Your life will fall into place. Everything will be good. And so it's completely unrealistic. I agree with you. Of course, obesity comes with health. There are issues with health, but sometimes we assume that everything has to do with obesity. It isn't proven that, if you have obesity, you will get diabetes, or you will get this. You're right, there are higher risks of complications, but what they're also finding now in all the studies and in the intuitive eating movement and health in every size is that we don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg sometimes. Sometimes it's a predisposition for one that kind of contributes to the other. And so if you make healthier choices, like I said, you move more often, you make better choices that nourish your body better without it being a specific diet, right? Because when we just have to cut out a whole food group or all sugar or all things, then we might do well for 6 months or a year, but at some point we're going to go back to like, I can't live with this anymore. It's too much for me. And we're a very food-based culture. Shabbos, Yom Tov, Shabbos parties. We have kiddushim all the time, you know, for ufra, for bar mitzvah. These are really hardships for people who are struggling with their body image. And so you're right. You have to find that balance. But when you panic about your child's obesity, you're kind of contributing to the fact that they're going to eat in secret because they can't eat in front of you. So they have to be good in front of you. If you kind of love and accept them and try to work with the intuitive eating and changing our attitudes around food and how we talk about food and what we use food for, then you're going to have better results than if you force dieting on them, because it doesn't seem to have the same outcome, a positive outcome anyway.
Wow. Thank you for explaining that really clearly. So just to round off right now,
Yeah.
I want parents to know, to have the resources and just everything to their advantage of how they can help, how they can contribute to healthy eating habits, joyful movements, all of that. Mm-hmm. What can parents do right now, moms, dads, peers, educators? How can we all help our girls, even ourselves? Because many moms, many adult women are struggling with this right now. What can we do?
I mean, this, you know, the numbers are that 80 to 90% of us have had body image issues at some point in our life. I mean, it's obviously a struggle that we all know intimately. It's not an out there kind of thing. We all struggle with it at some point. You know, first of all, that's why education, awareness, prevention is so critical, which is what Atzmi is doing. And the program for the parents and the program for the educators kind of highlights it. One thing I would say primarily is that if a mother is struggling with her own body image issues and she thinks she's hiding it from her daughter, she is not. Children learn by modeling. So actually studies show that girls who are younger than 8 or 10 years old, they actually their bodies, they associate with their mother so highly that they eat like their mother. They assume their body looks like their mother's body. That's what the studies show. So girls who are younger than 8 years old are already they already hate their bodies. They're already thinking they need to diet. That's how their mother feels. It doesn't matter what the mother says. They see what the mother does, how she walks by the mirror, how she talks to herself, how she talks on the phone. They hear all these things and they absorb it. So I would say get help yourself with your own body image issues. That's number one. Number two, you know, change the conversation around food. Let's stop talking to people every time we see them. You look beautiful. To little girls, your dress is so pretty. Your hair bow's so pretty. You look so cute. We have to change how we talk. It's so good to see you. What have you been up to? It looks like you did this, or you worked so hard. We have to try to think of things that are outside the box instead of just saying you look good, because like I said, sometimes people lost weight because they're sick. And so if you tell them they look good, then you're reinforcing the fact that they don't feel good. It's a horrible thing to say to somebody who's ill, who lost a lot of weight. We have to be so sensitive how we speak about food, how we use food. And our kids have to know that we love them no matter what. So obviously there are rules in our home. We have certain things that are not crossable lines. I'm not saying that that goes out the window. I'm simply saying that they should know that your love is not dependent on what they look like, what they weigh. These are not things that are debatable. Like, we love you the way you are. Whatever we are doing, you know, we're trying to help you, we're trying to support you, we're trying to love you. When they feel like their love is dependent on looking a certain way, doing a certain thing, behaving a certain way, then the relationship dynamic is messed up in a way that it's harder for you to have a positive relationship with your child, because it's all about reward and punishment. So I would say those are, I guess, 3 high-level things. You know, I do a class on that where we talk about how to change the conversation, what we can do. You know, I think it's wonderful when groups of parents get together, of parents of girls, and talk about like their girls' issues and problems that they're facing and how they can speak differently to their girls, or how they can support them and make them feel better. These are important conversations to keep having. Because we've all struggled with the same things, and it's nobody's fault. There's no blame here. It's just that we have to change it because it hasn't served us, and it's dangerous in a lot of ways. So I guess I guess that's what I would say. We have to take weight stigma out of schools. That's big in the education realm. That's big. Sometimes, unfortunately, we give the message to the girls that how they look or what they do with their bodies has to do with what happens to Klal Yisrael. If we are struggling with something bad happening, sometimes it's a woman's fault. She wasn't sneeze enough. She didn't do this enough, that enough. These conversations have to be changed because that's just not something we can process or our girls can understand. And this creates this mixed message perception, stigma, all these things contribute to eating disorders and body image issues.
For sure. And I know you have prevention programs for schools. What about for parents? Do you have something for parents? Anyone who's listening to this right now or who's on their own, they don't go to school, they don't go to college. How can they contact you? How can you help them?
So we're more than happy to do some of the programs with them to talk about some of the appearance ideals and body image things and cognitive dissonance, where you kind of create a questioning for them of some of these societal ideals is really how we change body image. But the ideal time to do that is actually during adolescence. The studies show that because they're more mutable then and they're changing and they're learning so much, this is the time, which is why our programs are then. It is harder for women who are older to change their feelings around food. Educating ourselves, reading the books, understanding the new studies and the information that's out there, reading up about intuitive eating, health at every size, feeling free to reach out to me at any time. You could go to our website, Atzmi, atzmi.org, or you can email me, Marcy, Marcy, @atzmi.org. I'm happy to help and give you book ideas and things like that. But education is really the key. We have to make changes. I mean, sadly, there are stories of women in hospice care, over 80 years old in hospice care, who refuse to eat cake, desserts. They say it's decadent, it's fattening, I can't eat it. It's like, why?
Yeah.
So
Horrible.
it's so ingrained that it's going to take a revolution, but we're working on it.
Working on it, exactly. Thank you so much, Marcy. I really appreciate everything you just told us. I think all the information you gave us is very relevant and it's very important. And I hope, and I know that anybody who's listening to this right now just got so much awareness, so much education, and every little step we take is going to help towards this change that we're talking about. So thank you so much for being here. And if you need to contact Dr. Marcy Forta, you can email her, your email address you just mentioned, and your website is Atzmi, ATZMI.org.
Yes, and thank you for taking on these topics, because if people don't bring them out in the open, people just don't realize what's going on. So I so appreciate that you do these kinds of podcasts. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.